For more great content, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Showstopper. I'm Yinsu. Now my co-host Tyler is on vacation right now for Thanksgiving, so I brought in someone else to help me out. It is the one and only verified Mr. RyanCentral. Hi Ryan, whose surname by the way is not actually Central, so it is a scam.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm really sort of debating a lot of different people. I've just been a ranked DJ for the last few weeks. I've just been waiting for champions at this point, and now it's like a week away at this point. We're getting there, and we're starting to get some cool stuff with it as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We're going to do some Champions preview today, and we've got to bring in someone who knows what it's like to attend an international LAN event. And because Tyler isn't here, I don't need to bring in someone from NA. I could just have everybody on the show from EU, which is my dream, the first ever all EU show. Welcome the former coach of G2 Esports, and Neil. It's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's the first time I've done anything like this, so should be fun, right?
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll take it easy on you. Don't worry. Because we're going to talk about champions. Now, like I said, Neil, you've been to an international tournament before, and we're going to look through the groups today and just talk over some of the stuff. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you, how different is it to play in that LAN environment compared to what other teams have been doing all year online?
Yeah, I think it was a big change, and it was like a really welcome change for us. Like for our team, it was like the first time people like Mixwell and stuff had been on LAN for 2 years or something because of COVID. So just being able to be back in a LAN environment on stage was amazing, And thankfully we did all right. Kellogg's especially, he performed really well, and it was his first event. So no, it was really good. It was exciting. It would have been way better with a crowd, obviously, but it was kind of understandable why you couldn't have it, right? But just the whole experience was really good,
Also, I gotta say, I was kind of a big fan of having the coaches on stage as well, because like in League of Legends and in Iceland, you saw all the coaches like backstage in a little box, like Minnie and Sliggy with their headsets on. But what was it like for you to be on stage? Because the crew coach was mental. He was so loud, and he was kind of like really bringing the atmosphere up. But yeah, what are your thoughts on being on stage?
Yeah, it was cool actually. We weren't sure how it was going to work out, so they kind of had like a mix, I guess, from Reykjavik, right? Because we had our analyst Rawkus, he was in the back as well. So it was a weird setup they had. I think they're going to change it for champions because it wasn't ideal. So I had one monitor with every single point of view. And I couldn't hear any in-game sound, which was hard, actually. You had no in-game sound. So we had to choose between having in-game sound and being able to hear the players. So I didn't have in-game sound. I could hear the players, and then Lucas, the analyst, couldn't hear anything. So I was kind of having to like give Lucas a play-by-play on what was happening. It's like, okay, guys, I think they're going to go B this round, or they're going to do this. But it was quite cool actually, because I could talk to Lucas through the whole thing. So having that back and forward communication, it was actually really good having an analyst, in the backstage who can kind of help you for your attack pauses. So no, it was actually really cool. It was better than what I expected.
Yeah, I kind of want to see more coach like giving it, like the crew coach, where they're just standing up and like shouting and stuff. I love that. Everyone gets so hyped. And Ryan, of course, sadly you weren't at Masters for Berlin, but I'm sure you watched and you saw that we also had the talent like on stage, basically in front of the players, which I'm a big fan of. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a bit of that hiccup with the casters being able to be heard by the players, so the white noise had to be turned up. The amount of time they took to adjust that was really impressive from Riot, just obviously moving the casters to somewhere where they couldn't be heard and the white noise doesn't need to be as loud. But yeah, seeing the desk there was really good. You also saw a little bit of that from some of the Stockholm major as well. There was a big debate about it, right? Where it's like, the casters aren't in the stadium with all of the crowds and stuff. But the community was like, no, you need that. You need the casters to have that atmosphere around them. The desk wasn't, I don't think, for the CSGO major. That was still somewhere else in another studio. But yeah, having everybody in the same venue, I hope that's what they do in the future. I think the reason why they keep people separate is costs. It's a lot cheaper to rent out a studio and have everybody there, and also logistically probably easier. But I do hope that even though it'll cost more for Riot, for Valve, or whoever, that we still keep getting everybody in the same venue, because that's part of it. And I'm really excited to see some of the talent that has got so used to casting like in a room like this at home, casting in front of an audience, because that is a whole different kettle of fish.
That's going to be fun. I did really enjoy hearing all the players like giving it, like Kellogg's, like with his little book, opening, shutting his little book. And
I was going to say, like, Neil, first of all, I bet you wish that LCQ was online, considering how
Oh.
how well you performed at Berlin, right? So one of the questions I had when it comes to some of the tactical calls that you had, the timeouts, what was some of the stuff that you spoke about? I think there was a couple of cases where, for example, you'd speak to Mixwell and get him to move his Killjoy utility off the C site on Haven and move it to A. I think that was against Crew. But were there like other, maybe even like weirder things that you've had to pause about to talk? Because I think a lot of people just assume that you taught tactics when realistically it might be just to stop people from tilting or get people to be less hyper, right? What were some of the calls that you had to make?
A lot of it, especially online, is more tactical stuff. So one of the problems we had in G2 was a lot of the players are kind of they weren't as vocal. So Coda needed someone else to help him kind of call, you know. So sometimes if he didn't get any help, I was focusing a lot on the tactical things. So yeah, like you said, I'd sometimes tell Oscar to move his utility. Against, I think it was Crew or against Sentinels, we made a couple of really good calls from our tech pauses. So just to focus on where the Killjoy was putting the utility. So, you know, key things like finding out where the Killjoy is playing, break the alarm bot before we actually start making plays, just to pull the rotations off. So it was a lot like that. Luckily, our team, we never really had that many internal issues, which is contrary to some of the reports I've seen, right? There was one occasion where I did have to pause. I think I can't even remember who it was against. It was really early in the game. It was 2-2, and we were just arguing about something stupid. So yeah, I did have to use the tac pause, but I wasn't happy about that. So we never had that problem ever again. I made that pretty clear. So yeah, that was just one of the occasions. But with the G2 team, everyone was very calm. Everyone was very collected. There was never any heated exchanges. So it was only on that one occasion. But most of the time in G2, it was more tactical kind of pauses, you know? Or just to refocus. And that was key to some of our big comebacks. You know, if we went quite far down, I would pause, just take everyone to chill, focus, take it round by round, and just like trying to give everyone the belief that we can still win, you know? So it was mostly stuff like that and then tactical stuff.
Actually, I'm glad you asked that, Ryan, because I think we credited G2 a lot, right, for how they use the pauses. Some teams just never pause, and I'm like, it confuses me when they don't do that. But we're going to talk about G2 a little bit later. For now, let's talk about Champions. That's happening in 9 days at the time of this episode being filmed. I do want to kind of go through group by group and ask your guys' opinions on which two teams you think are getting out and which team you think has the upset potential. You know, that dark horse, the crew factor, I guess, from the last international event. So let's start with Group A. Now, Group A is, first of all, thank you so much, Riot, for not putting two EMEA teams in the same group this time. That's that's pretty much all I asked for since the last event. But Group A, we have Ascend, we have Envy, we have X10, and we have Vivo Keyed. I'll start with you, Ryan. Which two teams do you think are getting out?
Oh, it's a good one. I think this is a really good group, like of just mixed teams.
Balanced,
and and all of the teams are also, these are the cracked Jet players, because you've got CNED in there, you've got Heat, you've got Yay, and then you've got Patipan as well. I am really excited for the eventual matchup of Ascend versus Envy. I think they're two teams that are very much on the same level. Of course, we've seen a lot more of Ascend recently from Homeground and stuff like that. They've been very open and honest with their approach to the game, whereas teams like, I imagine Fnatic and Gambit were like, we don't want to show too much. I feel like Ascend was, we want to put ourselves out there because that's what tripped us off in Berlin, is just we got out experienced by some of the teams like 100 Thieves, for example. So we want to just go and play as many officials as possible, do LVP. I do think that Envy have a lot going for them, just with their team. It's the strongest they've looked. I'm curious about Chet as a coach, because obviously Mike's was the coach for Envy around the time of Berlin, and then Chet came in, which I'm not really a fan of that move. But I think that Ascend Envy are very equal. Vivo Keyed, X10 I don't really have much hope for. Certainly with Patipan, I think going to the Overwatch League next year, he was easily their best player, so it doesn't really inspire much confidence. And Vivo Keyed, well, he is amazing. You've got MW0 coming into that roster as well to play Sova, which he's never done before. That could be interesting, but I think Ascend and Envy are the top two there. I don't know who's going to win that matchup, though. That's a hell of a game.
Who's your dark horse then out of X10 and Vivo?
I think Vivo. It would be really cool to see MW0 because he is an insane raise for the most part. That's what he's known for. I'm pretty sure Vivo Kita's like 3 players that can play Jet and Raze, which is like he,
Yeah.
Mirrors, and now MW0. So it's a firepower roster. I'm just not really sure because we didn't see that much great stuff out of them from Berlin. The problem for a lot of these teams is we just haven't seen them since that time in Berlin, right? Since like August. So you've got Fracture, you've got KO that's going to be in this tournament, right? So really, there's a lot of time to change stuff, and the firepower for Vivo Kid is insane. It's just how they play as a team.
Yeah, I'm largely with you there. And Neil, what do you think? Which 2 teams are you backing?
I'd probably say the same as Ryan, to be honest. I can't really look past Ascend and Envy. I think they've got the best rosters there. The others, I mean, X10, I think, are a team that can upset you. And like that's the thing with any of those teams, right? Everyone here is good. There's no bad teams. The Brazilians, I feel like I've not really seen the full potential out of them, to be honest. It's like we never played them in Berlin either. But when we practiced against the Berlin teams, it was always like a running joke, you know, like we could schedule our lunch and we could play the Brazilian teams in a best of 2 and we'd be finished with, I don't know, 45 minutes because they just play so fast. So fast. It's like they have firepower and that's it. So it's like they rely a lot on momentum. They rely a lot on firepower. And I guess if they turn up on the day, then sure, they can definitely upset. But I think Ascend have already kind of been there, done that. They've seen it. Envy were really strong the last time as well. So like Ryan said, it'll be interesting to see what Chet does. I'm not really sure how much time Mike had with the team before. I know he wasn't at the event, right?
He was very on and off with the team because I think from what I understand, they really wanted Chet for the longest while, but of course he went like TSM and I think he was on NRG to begin with as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was Diogo, the players that really wanted him, but it could work out. I mean, coaches is going to be a big talking point when we get to Sentinels as well. So I'm very curious on how Envy's going to do, because obviously if Envy don't do that well, I think it's easy for Chet to be scapegoated, which I feel happens
the coach
more than
is
anything
always scapegoated. It's like if a team does well, it's like, oh, the IGL is amazing, and if the team like isn't doing well, it's like, oh, the coach sucks. It's like, I feel for you, Neil. I feel for you. Actually, on the Brazilian teams, I do want to ask you about if this is like a fair assessment, because I've heard a couple of pro players say that the problem they feel with the Brazilian teams is that they haven't improved as fast as like NA and EMEA and even APAC. Would you agree with that? Do you think that's an issue, that they just haven't improved as fast as everyone else?
I definitely would say I think it has. They don't. I wouldn't say they haven't evolved with the meta, but I feel like it is literally just firepower. They rely so much on it, you know. On pistol rounds, it's like, guys, just chill. Like they're gonna run at us, and they do. Like it's just so fast paced. Like on bind, they'll have like a raise and a jet, dash and double satchel, and it's crazy. You just sit, you wait for them, you kill them. So it's like, I don't want to say they're one dimensional, but they don't really have that much depth to their game. I feel like it's a shame though, because they're very good players individually. So I feel like if they just maybe they've got something up their sleeves for champions, you know. But from what I've heard from scrims so far leading up, not much has changed. They're very fast paced. So
that's what I've heard as well.
We'll see.
Maybe they're saving it. We'll see. But let's move on to Group B. Again, I feel like this is kind of a balanced group, but it is also quite... Actually, just on my part, I think Ascend and Envy are also getting out, but I'm going to do a hot take here and say X10 could be the upset factor, but we'll see. But yeah, for Group B, Sentinels, Crew, Team Liquid, and Fury. And Neil, what do you think about these 4 teams? Which 2 do you think are getting out?
So I think Liquid and Sentinels I don't want to say for sure, because Crew are actually really strong, to be honest. I think it's one of those things where it's like you play Crew and everyone's like, oh, they had such an easy run, they play Crew, but they're not an easy team to play against. They actually smashed us in Prague leading up to Berlin, so we didn't take them lightly, you know. They've got some very good individual skill. They play really well as a team. So honestly, it depends what Sentinels you see showing up, because Crew could definitely give them a hard run. You know, like we had trouble with the Korean team, and so did Sentinels. You know, I mean, they said they were trolling, but I don't know. I think Crew are one of those teams that really can, if you're not on it and you don't respect them, they're a very high momentum team as well. You know, you play against them, every time they get a kill, they're up, they're screaming in your face, they're shouting, like you said, the coach is getting them pumped up. So they're another team that are very good, but I think Liquid and Sentinels have to be the favourites, right? But I I would definitely say Crew are really close to being able to upset either team.
Honestly,
sure.
I think if Crew was in like Group A or Group C, for example, I think if Crew was in Group C with Gambit, they would have gotten out. But
Yeah,
Ryan, Ryan, who are you back in Group B?
I think you have to say Liquid and Sentinels. I do agree on Crew, and I think the same can be said for Furia. I think everything that Neil said about like Brazilian teams being super fast, I think it applies to everybody other than Furia because they can be pretty slow, methodical. Almost reminds me of how FPX used to play sort of this time last year, where it was almost we have that firepower, we can be explosive, but we choose not to and be very selective. You also have like a player like Zand who is pretty old, I think, by like professional standards, like 33, 34 maybe. But you also have some young players like Nozwa and Quick, who I think are like 16, 17, Khalil super young as well. So I think experience is the thing that booms Furia a little bit, just young players playing on an international stage like that. But I do think that coming into this tournament, Furia looked the best Brazilian team. I don't know how well it matches up against Crew though, because the teamwork is there. They're a unified team and it looks really solid. But you go into those moments where it's like, all right, we'll compare Nags, like the majority jet player for Crew versus Heat doesn't compare. How about Mures versus I think it's Kesnet. Like it doesn't compare. Like individually, pound for pound, I think they lose against the majority of teams in this tournament. But how they play as a 5-stack beats a lot of teams handedly. So that's an interesting one, and could be a bit of a curveball for Liquid and Sentinels, who realistically should be winning.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting group too. For me, again, Liquid and Sentinels. I see a world where Crew goes through, but I do not see a world where Crew goes through in the place of Liquid. Like, I think Liquid are going through. I just think the other three, maybe I can see here and there an upset, but I think it would be an astronomical upset if Team Liquid don't make it out of their group. I'm going to curse them now, but let's move on to Group C, where this is my biggest hot take. Obviously, Gambit are going through. I firmly believe Team Secret are going through as the second place. Like, I just feel it. I really enjoy this team as well, but also the fact that we didn't get to see them in Berlin and the fact that Paper X were so good and they weren't even the first seed from their region makes me really excited to see Secret. But Ryan, what do you think? Obviously, Gambit is a no-brainer, but the other three.
Yeah, I mean, there is potential for Crazy Racoon, which sounds crazy considering like the amount of times that we've seen them in these tournaments. I feel that you can't really sleep on Vikings. They were quintessentially the best team in Brazil at the start of the year. Then we kind of went into a different meta. I think that's the thing that tripped them up the most, is just when Sky started to get more popular, it really felt the Vikings didn't know how to approach that, to the point where Sassy, who was majority the silver player, started playing a little bit of Jet and stuff like that. GTN was changing around. It wasn't the most solid look, but I think the backbone of Sutakas, I think is how you say it in Sadak, which is like their controller and sentinel player, is one of the strongest in this tournament. It's just how they position as other three players, which, like we've been saying, Brazil have the firepower, but like, say, for example, if you have Sassy being a really top KO player, because that could be a thing, there is potential. And really, they've had so much time to sort out their issues. They should be coming into this tournament and qualifying. Otherwise, I think you got to clean house with some of the players or some of the back end people, because like they weren't in Masters 3. We last saw them in like Reykjavik and during Stage 3. That's a long time to sort out any issues you have.
So you're backing Gambit and Vikings?
It should be Vikings, really, I think, with this group.
You think Crazy Racoon is the dark horse?
Yeah, I mean, they're always consistently there. Like
my
Munchkin,
Team Secret boys, man, come on.
Yeah, Munchkin, though, is pretty insane. Like, I think a lot of players on that Crazy Racoon squad are good. It's just that experience. And they've also had Boasters help recently, right? So
they have, yeah. So if they lose, it's his fault.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He gets sacked for being their intermittent coach or whatever it is.
Yeah. Neil, what do you think about this? Did you guys prac against Vikings and Crazy Racoon? Obviously, I don't think you would have pracked against Secret, given they weren't there.
No, yeah, we didn't play against Secret, but we did prac against both teams, Vikings and Crazy Racoons. Like I said, we never ever had a problem playing the Brazilians, so Vikings, I feel like they kind of fall into the same category. They're going to be very aggressive. Crazy Racoons, though, they stomped us on prac a couple of times.
Oh, really? Wow.
Like, they were really good on prac, on Haven especially. There was a couple of games like we'd stomp them, they'd stomp us, but yeah, we were when they were playing the event, we were thinking, these guys could actually do some damage. And I think they got 13-0'd by Ascent. Was it Ascent or was it Gambit? They got 13 0'd by someone.
It was like 13-1, 13-1, I think, 2 maps in a row. Yeah,
Gambit,
it was
right?
Yeah, it was Gambit, which is kind of unlucky. They're in Gambit's group again. But,
so I don't know if they like hard crumbled or something, because when they played the Gambit the second time, you started to see what we saw in Prac, and they were really good. I think it was like a close first map or close second map. It was overtime, I think. So I feel like, Gambit are, I think, definitely going to go through.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I would probably say it's hard. It really is hard. It depends which Crazy Racoon team kind of turns up. And have they still got a 7-man roster as well?
Yeah.
One of them's not coming. Minty
didn't. Minty came all the way to Berlin last time. I didn't play a single game. So
yeah. I guess it depends if they use a 6-man smartly. I mean, maybe if they put him on KO or something and he's just been grinding KO, maybe they come out and shock someone with being really strong on KO, right? But I've honestly never seen, I haven't seen the Team Secret guys really, so I would have to say Gambit for sure, and then it's a toss-up between the others, honestly. I'm going to say Crazy Racoon just because I feel like I've seen a bit of their potential in Berlin, but I feel like Secret and Vikings are equally capable, you know?
Yeah, I like that we're all split on this one. We're like Gambit, and then Ryan's gone for Vikings, you've gone for Crazy Racoon, I went for Team Secret. Yeah. They have a player called Borkum. Come on, that's the best name ever. It's all capital letters Borkum.
That's Dubstep as well.
Yeah, Dubstep.
Like,
Jesse Rash. They've got like amazing names on this team. It's unreal. But now we gotta do Group D, the group of death. I feel like every tournament there needs to be one. It's just like, it's better for the storyline. Personally though, I would have really liked to see Cloud9 Blue in Gambit's group and then like have one of the teams from Group C move to Group D. Then I think that would have been like the perfect tournament group ever. But alas, Ender was the one to blame. He was the one that did the balls from the draw. But Vision Strikers, Fnatic, Full Sense, and Cloud9 Blue. I'm just gonna get my bias out of the way and say that I think Fnatic are qualifying, and then it's a toss-up between Vision Strikers, Cloud9 Blue, and Full Sense. But Neil, what do you think? Who have you got for this one? I know this is the toughest one to predict.
It's tough. It is. It really is tough. So I think I think everyone right now is saying Fnatic are going to get stomped. Like most people, most pros are thinking they're going to, just from what they've seen in Pracs. I would probably have the same. The last time I seen Fnatic in Prac, it was a very different Fnatic to, Reykjavik times. But at the same time, those guys, I feel like Fnatic weren't amazing going into Reykjavik, right? But then they stepped up crazy amounts.
They have a land buff.
So yeah, like I feel like people are underestimating Fnatic now to the point of they might just pull out the bag against, because like they still have crazy players, some insane skill. So I don't know. I think Cloud9 as well is hard for me. I've watched a lot of Cloud9 games and I was impressed with them, to be honest. They were actually pretty good. So Vision Strikers as well, I'd put them as maybe being the first team to go through.
Yeah.
I think they're an incredible team. We spent a lot of time with them in Berlin, actually, with G2. They came to the office and we were getting like an insight into their schedule, and I've never, ever heard anything like it, seriously.
Really? What's it like? Man. Is it just really full?
So it's like when they have a big tournament coming up, so before Berlin, they practice 7 days a week for a month. They start scrims at 11 a.m. They finish
God.
I think it was like their day finishes at 11 p.m. So it's like 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Obviously, that's not all scrims. A lot of it's theory, a lot of it's pugs, just ranked games, deathmatch. But they've got like 2 or 3 coaches, and the coaches literally make sure they don't play any other game other than Valorant. So it's like, in terms of teamwork and stuff, they're destroying people in scrims right now, I think. And they were the same in Berlin. They were incredible in scrims, but they kind of fell short. I don't know if it's maybe a case of overplaying. Could be possible. So I'm going to say Vision Strikers anyway, because I think they have a really good roster, to be honest. And if their schedule's anything like that, they're going to be super prepared. And it's going to be a toss-up for me between the other teams, honestly. I think Fnatic, if they have the land buff, they're going to qualify. But Cloud9 were pretty impressive when I was watching them. They were using KO on maps like Breeze, and it was actually pretty impressive. So it's hard. It's really hard.
I feel like you said before Reykjavik, everybody also thought Fnatic were going to get knocked out like immediately. Yeah. They were like, they're shit. But they just shithouse the final somehow. And I think it's like Team Liquid in EMEA. Like, everybody always shits on them before a tournament. I don't know why. Everyone's always underestimating them, but they're always in a bloody final. Like, I just think it might be the same thing. But then again, I feel like this group is considerably harder than what they had to face at Reykjavik. Like, their road was not this tough at Reykjavik. But we'll see. But I'm with you, Neil. I think Vision Strikers for me is more likely than the other three. But Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, before everything that Neil said, I had Vision Strikers winning the event. I just think that we haven't seen him in a while, which benefits them. A lot of the time from like looking at Vision Strikers, what they used to ban out and stuff, there's a lot of sandbagging, like they would perma-pick Haven, and then the next like playoff event, they'd ban Haven just to stop showing anything on their best map, and then they'd start picking it again for Masters 3. I feel like we haven't seen them since Masters. You've got a new map in the game. You've got KO that's going to be a lot more popular, I think, for this event in comparison to previous ones, just because Sky was nerfed. I just think that the preparation of this team coming into it, and the fact that nobody really knows what they're doing composition-wise, unless you're scrimming them, is a big concern. I think that they only need to win however many games to get to a final at this point, and by that time, a team's realistically going to be able to anti-strat them in that, considering how deep they can look. I'm not too convinced on that. I do think the Full Sense is also a really scary team. Like, considering they came through the APAC last chance qualifiers with Korean teams, like Damwon, sure, they weren't expecting to be there, considering that I think it was one of the like Chinese teams that were meant to be there pulled out. So it basically meant that Damwon could go to that event when they initially weren't able to. I feel for Fnatic, those that are looking at performances from like home ground and stuff like that and basing their predictions off that are idiots. Like, it makes no sense to me why Fnatic would ever show anything at this event. I'm pretty sure if they had control over what events they get to play, because sometimes the orgs and stuff like that want them to play in certain events, I'm pretty sure the team would turn around and go, we don't want to play this event because we want to, again, have that. We don't want anybody to see what we're necessarily doing. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a completely different Fnatic to what we did at home ground. I'm surprised that not many people have said that much at the moment. And Cloud9, very streaky, but they got better as they went on in last chance qualifiers, specifically Zeppa. Like, his performance was nuts. This is a really good group. Any of these four teams could qualify. I think Vision Strikers definitely goes through. I want to see Fnatic do it. Cloud9, you never really know. Like, just Vanity and his team being on a LAN seems to be really good with how version 1 did. I'm going to say Cloud9 just so I jinxed them, so Fnatic That's my idea.
Honestly, I feel like they're gonna somehow shithouse it. Like, Redgar has said couple times that because 100 Thieves didn't qualify for this event, Redgar is like, I want to play against Fnatic more than any other team in the world. Like, I want to beat them so badly for what they did to them before Reykjavik. So I feel like just based off of that fact that Redgar seems to always manage to materialize these things, I think they'll make it to quarters, face Gambit in the first round and somehow beat Gambit. I just feel like it's just that kind of shithousery that we're used to seeing EMEA. But Ryan, you already said that you think Vision Strikers are going to win the whole tournament, and Neil, we don't know the playoff bracket yet, but if we take that out of like context and not think about the playoff bracket, who do you think will win the entire tournament? Who do you think will be the strongest team?
I was really impressed with Liquid when we played against them. I think Nivera was insane. I really want to say Liquid or Gambit. Gambit, I think people are saying they've fallen off a little bit, right? But I really hope Liquid do it. I think they can do it. I think they've got the players now individually to definitely do it. And especially on LAN, like you've got Nivera, you've got Scream, they're going to have like a really good bond together, I think it's kind of like a honeymoon, would be like the honeymoon end of year for him, right? He's came in, he's already won last chance. They're more than capable. They've got even more LAN experience now. So I don't know. I think I really want Liquid to win, and I think they could win. But like Ryan said, to be honest, whoever wins this group, was it Group D? Yeah. Whoever wins Group D could also be favorites. And I don't know. Like for me, it depends what Sentinels team turn up as well. Like how much they've improved, like tactically. So I want to say Liquid will win, but I also do believe that it could be one of the teams from Group D, to be honest.
I think it would be quite poetic if Vision Strikers, managed to kind of start the year off as the best team in the world and then finish the year off as best team in the world.
Yeah.
But we'll see, because Champions is going to start in 9 days and we'll find out in like 2 weeks who's going to be the winner of Champions. But you mentioned LCQ there, Neil, and I want to quickly talk to you about, kind of the fallout of LCQ, because obviously, as expected, EMEA is going through like roster mania. Like some of the rumors I've heard for post Champions is literally, it's like fucking crazy. Some of the things that I feel like is going to happen that nobody's going to expect. But from your perspective, going into Masters Berlin, G2 going into there, everyone's like, it's the return of G2, from the Ignition Series days. It felt like all the stars were aligned. G2 did the G2 thing of like pulling apart 2 different rosters just to form a super team, and it was working. So why do you feel like, after Masters Berlin, that kind of momentum didn't take you all the way to winning LCQ? I mean, it took you as far as I think if you didn't make it that far, I feel like if you didn't at least make the finals, it would have been a failure, right? In your guys' eyes, at least. So why do you feel like you weren't able to kind of push it over the line?
I think it was just a case of mass burnout. Everyone was exhausted, honestly, because the scheduling that we had was insane, but we couldn't do it any other way. So, obviously we had the team with Jacob and stuff before, right? Jacob benched himself 1 week before even the first start of the qualifier, and you guys know how the qualifiers go, right? It's like open qualifiers into closed qualifiers into the qualifier for the qualifier for the qualifier, the LAN, and it's like you're literally playing qualifiers constantly. So I think I spoke about this on the talk show I did in Spain. I think it was the Friday night we found out Jacob benched himself. I was up until 5 a.m. trying to find players to trial. You're 1 week before the qualifiers start, and no one's going to leave their team, right? 1 week before the qualifiers start. So you've got free agents to look at. There was no Sentinels at all. And the only chance we had at finding like a player good enough skill-wise was to find a jet main, because that's all there was. So yeah, we found Kellogg's. We trialed, I think it was 16 or 17 people in the space of 3 or 4 days. Picked them up, and then we had 4 days to prep before the qualifier started. So it was literally, I think the reason we didn't qualify is pretty much from how it all went from the start, right? We had no time to add structure. It was always a constant case of patching things. The roles were royally screwed. We had 3 duelists essentially. Mixwell was trying to flex. And then we were playing 6 days a week just to try and get defaults on the maps. And then we were getting so much criticism, like, oh, G2 aren't structured, you're relying on individual skill. It's like, bro, put Pep bloody Guardiola in here and talking about good structure, and like there's only so much someone can learn. I literally had a strat book with 92 things on it, like a 92-page strat book after 2 weeks of scrims. So it's like, people are human, they can't learn structure in 2 weeks. And then you see what happened to Fnatic and to Liquid, right? After Reykjavik, everyone knows what you do. So again, we've came back from having to kind of bullshit our way through like structure-wise, defaults, comps, to then come back from Berlin and everyone's watching you. Everyone knows what you do. And we did the same thing against Fnatic when we played them with Kellogg's. We knew absolutely everything they were going to do. And it wasn't even their game plan we knew. We just knew the moves that Durkee was going to do. We knew how Boaster was going to call. And that is impossible to change in 2 weeks. So I think that's a major factor. The same thing that happened to Liquid and the same thing that happened to Fnatic happened to us after Berlin. Everyone knew what we did. There's no time to change it. And the teams that weren't at the event were just constantly practicing and constantly getting better. So Liquid obviously had Nivera, they were practicing. You had Guild, who are a really strong team as well. Those guys were practicing, and everyone just knew what we were going to do. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what it was,
Yeah, I've said this in the past as well, because obviously, like you said, what happened to Liquid and Fnatic, I do not believe that was a coincidence. Like that's going to happen. I think it'll happen
here.
Yeah, it'll happen here.
LCQ teams are really going to struggle for that reason alone.
I completely agree. Yeah. But actually, at the extension of what happened at LCQ, obviously we saw the coaching staff of G2 leave the team. So what was the reason behind your departure?
So I mean, we haven't really spoken about I haven't really spoken about stuff publicly. I never do, to be honest. Whereas Lucas has obviously got the Spanish follow, and he talks quite openly about what goes on. I had big problems with Lucas in G2. for the majority of the year, right? We constantly fought for power because he wanted to be the head coach. So yeah, that was kind of like my life for 3 months, was constantly fighting for power, trying to stop this divide of Spain and the rest of the teams. Obviously, you had Coda, you had Mixwell, so it's something that I never dealt with before in an org. Right? This is like my first tier 1 org. So for me, I have learned so much in terms of working with other staff. But to be honest, like me and Lucas have ended on really good terms. So really good friends with him. I understood kind of why he wanted to be the head coach, and I think it was just a case of he wanted to be the head coach from the start, but he kind of joined as an analyst, and then it was honestly like the whole situation in the G2 was weird. We kind of had to make the players vote who they wanted as the head coach, me or Lucas.
Oh my
They
gosh.
chose me, so after they chose me to stay on as head coach, Lucas has obviously decided to leave, so he's going to go and pursue trying to be a head coach elsewhere. But one thing I made very clear to the management at G2 was I don't want any more changes. Like, I can't do any more changes with players.
Like roster changes with
Roster
your team.
changes, yeah. It's like 6 or 7 changes or something in the year. And for me as a coach, like I find it really hard to work when you're constantly changing. It's like something definitely had to change, I guess, in this team with the roles. But I guess it was just the way things were going. I don't think stability is going to be something they're going to have for a while, I guess, until they find the roles out. So yeah, when it was kind of like a crossroads, right? When Lucas was like, okay, I'm going to leave, I kind of had to decide, do I want to stay on next year or do I not? And yeah, I basically just said I don't want to stay on as a head coach. I would maybe consider staying on as an assistant or something, because I think change for the team would have been really good. We went through a lot with me as the coach. We've had some highs, some lows. I think we did all right in Berlin considering the time restraints we had, right? So yeah, for me it was just a hectic year, and I think I've learned a lot. And it was basically just that. We came down to a crossroad. It's like, do you stay or do you go? And I think it was better for everyone if we parted ways, to be honest. So that's kind of how it's went. I've still got a really good relationship with all the players, so I hope they do really well.
Actually, when it comes to the roster changes, because we've heard through pretty, I don't want to say like reliable sources, but everyone's talking about these roster changes, right? It's like it's not massively secretive. Do you feel like G2 would have had a better chance if they just stayed as the 5 they currently have, or do you feel like the changes they are going to make is going to be good for them and it's going to be necessary?
Yeah, honestly, I think before, obviously, there was so many things you guys seen, like with Nikki and saying he wasn't going to play with certain people. I think.
Yeah. Well, actually, I will be really blunt about it. Like, is that true? Like, is that the fact that that's come out? Is that something that actually happened?
I'm still technically contracted to G2, right? So I don't want to say too much.
Oh, it's okay. I won't put you on the spot. I won't put you on the spot.
Like basically, something did happen, but I think it was a case where they could have easily solved it, But
yeah,
I think the team realized after Berlin, like, shit, we have 3 duelists in the team. Like, we have 3 people who want to be a duelist. We have no one that can flex. So I think if the team stayed together as 5, someone would have had to have sacrificed to a role they don't want to play. For example, a Vova would have probably had to go to a Sentinel or something like that. So you're then sacrificing probably the best controller, or one of the best controllers in Europe, to be a Sentinel player, right? So yeah, honestly, I do understand the changes. I think if they could have stayed as 5, it would have maybe worked. But I think when you just add up everything from, do you know what? Like, say if they won, or if we won Berlin, or if we qualified for Worlds, I think we would have definitely stayed together as 5 and tried out these changes with Avova and Sentinel or something like that. Something crazy, just to try and make it work. Because everyone on the team got on really well in real life. Everyone was really good friends, so that was never a problem. But I think now when there's change in the staff, it's a really good time to change for 2022, right? They've got 3 months now to sit and practice. So now there's no excuses. Like they can get a lot of structure in 3 months. If we had that time, I think we would have been insane. So now is a good time to get good roles in, to be honest, and work with what they've got.
You were the part of the first teams to have beaten Sentinels, and obviously they've made like moves as well, bringing Rawkus in as a coach. I feel more as just an assistant to Shazam, who is still the head coach, right? And just having a player's perspective. First of all, what do you think went wrong for Sentinels when you played against them in Berlin, and then obviously them being eliminated early by Envy? But what what kind of angle do you expect to see change by bringing a player in to be a coach? Because I feel like you're more of a man management kind of person. Obviously, you come up with strategies, but it's more about keeping five, I imagine, very big egos with G2, right? Like keeping everybody in check to an extent. What went wrong with Sentinels, and how do you think Rawkus could potentially fix it, if you do think that at all?
I honestly, it depends what they want from a coach. We actually done a lot of tactical stuff in the team. Koda kind of, with everything that was going on, he kind of took a back step. So we were doing a lot of the tactics. We were finding lineups. Every single lineup the players had were the staff. So Lucas was essentially the lineup coach. Every kind of bit of utility they did, it was from the coaching staff. 95% of them. So we did a lot in terms of that. So with Sentinels though, when we played them, after that we've played them first, we were like, okay, these guys aren't that good. Like individually, they're really not as strong as what we thought they were going to be. Tens was obviously popping off a little bit, but even then, like we felt CNED was more dangerous, right? So I'm not sure if he was just having not as strong that day. And even after they destroyed us on Haven, we kind of thought like these guys are beatable, So we went back that night. We watched the games back. We made some comp changes to kind of surprise them. And we implemented that over like 2 days. So I think that's where coaching staff come in quite well, right? You're able to change up your comps drastically in the space of 2 days. And then, when we played Sentinels again, they kind of just done the same thing. So it depends what Sentinels want in a coach. If they want someone who's going to come in and add to their strategy and help Shazam, I think that's probably what they need. But like you say, if it's going to just be to manage them, then I think they might have the same problems. But the good thing about having a person in as a coach who's also a player, he'll be able to help them adapt mid-tournament. I think that's probably what Sentinels needed, to be honest. That ability to have someone on the outside looking at them and saying, okay, this is too obvious, you've done this, you've done that, we need to change it for the next game. So if Rawkus can do that, then I think it'll make Sentinels really dangerous, because they are insane individually, right? It's just they didn't have... I think if the game was a bit less developed, like it was when G2 were dominating everyone, that style would have worked more in the tournament, right? They wouldn't have had to change as much. But if Rawkus can give them that ability to change mid-tournament and make themselves a little bit more less predictable, I think they'll be really strong.
I honestly,
did a bird's eye view as well. Just that element of, not that I think all of the players for Sentinels get on, but just I can imagine like what happened here. How did this player get for our spawn, right? And the coach being able to go, they did this, and it doesn't come out into a sort of he said kind of moment, but also you have a tap pause to just reset.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if he can do something, if he can play that role, I think it'll help Sentinels a lot. It blows my mind, to be honest, that Shazam could do everything. It's actually so impressive. Like really impressive. So
he's also like the dad as well, from what I heard. Like keeps them like, in check, make sure they're not behaving badly. I also think they probably also suffer from the burnout problems, because they've been at every single tournament like this entire year. Yeah. They haven't even had that kind of like break the Fnatic and Liquid have had. So I do wonder how they're going to do here. But also Carcass moving over to being a coach, and look how well G2 goes and have done. So there's definitely some value there. Yep. But to close off the show today, I just wanted to ask both of you, actually, what's next for you? I'll start with you, Ryan. Any projects in the line?
Just try what you got at this point. That's about it, really. Not that I can talk about yet, but I'm enjoying the Christmas break and everything being a little bit quieter at the moment. So.
And Neil, what's next for you? Where are you gonna be going to another team perhaps for 2022?
Yes, definitely. So I've already done a few trials, both in Europe and in North America. So I'm kind of looking at both regions, right? But in terms of what I'm gonna do, I'm not sure. It's kind of like it's really hard, because obviously you hear the rumors of what's gonna happen after Champions.
Yeah.
But it depends when VCT is gonna start next year as well. I don't want to be sat here until January not with the team, because VCT is going to come up really quickly in 2022, and it's only going to give you like a month to start with a new team if I wait till January. So I'm definitely going to do something, but it probably won't be announced, I guess, until the end of the year. My contract runs out with G2 on the 31st of December, so I highly doubt I'll announce anything before then. I'm just also chilling, enjoying a break, because it's the first one I've had since I joined G2 actually. So yeah, it's nice having a break actually.
Stay in EU. Don't go to North America.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to stay in EU, to be honest. It just needs to be, if it's the right team, I'd even be an assistant for the right team, you know, if I can learn something from the coach, I'd 100% be up for that. So we shall see what happens. I definitely want to stay in EU, but if not, I'm not kind of shying away from challenges in North America. You know, I think it'd be interesting. So we shall see.
Yeah, I think you'll lose even more hair than you have now if you go to
most
North
likely.
America.
I mean, to be honest, it can't be any worse than the last year, right? Like G2's done a pretty good job. So
yeah, that is true. That is true. All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Ryan, and thank you so much, Neil, for joining me. It's been a pleasure. If you guys like this episode, subscribe, drop a like and a comment, and also we're now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so go check us out there if you would rather listen than to watch us. But that is all for now, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.